Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Yeah, welcome back. Lots to talk about today. This is an ever-moving target when it comes to immigration, ICE, arrests, challenges, violence, all of that. And there is a move from several states now to ban the local cooperation in the immigration arrests. We're going to talk about that, at least start there. And she's got her finger on that and so much more. 4 decades, more than 4 decades of professional service under her belt, and most recently with Sigmond, a legal firm in New York City. So great to have her back here. What's law got to do with it? Our professional of the year, Carol Sigmond, is on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm well, Steve. How are you?
Very well. And I appreciate you being here. I know that, this gets a little deep, but we try, the rest of us, without any legal background, try to put the pieces together. There's also pieces of emotion that get infused in with that. And I like to think that when we're here, we don't get involved in that. These are the facts. This is the law. We kind of break it down there and then let others make their own opinion, form them, or justify situations. So even as a couple of hours ago, a lot of talk about the 287G agreements that allow local law enforcement to cooperate with federal immigration officials. And there are some states saying, yeah, we're not going to do that. What are you seeing right now? Let's get the latest.
Okay, so this is a little more complicated. Like everything else we talk about, Steve, there's a lot in the weeds. So traditionally, there has been a shared concern between state and federal officers, excuse me, to remove violent criminals, people who steal, people who assault. Mm-hmm. And so originally, and for decades, there have been serious cooperation efforts between local law enforcement, state law enforcement, and federal law enforcement, ICE, ATF, Border Patrol, FBI, to remove people from the country who pose a threat of violence or, serious crime. And these were generally not particularly controversial. And there were agreements. If there's a judicial warrant issued for the arrest of one of these people and the state picks him up or the local authorities pick him up, the federal authorities are notified, especially if there are either federal charges pending or federal removal orders pending. That was a very standard way of proceeding, not sometimes controversial because people didn't like it and, some people didn't want their family members deported for stealing or whatever, but too bad, that's the way it is.
Yep.
The most recent round in the last year or so has involved a lot of people who have removal orders or don't have removal orders, have overstayed removal orders, but are essentially not violent, not engaged in criminal activity, and not otherwise disrupting society. And this has created issues because many of these people have U.S. citizen children, U.S. citizen relatives. They're embedded in their local communities, and they're not doing anything to draw attention from law enforcement. So they have not been the priority for removals. They just have been there. In the current atmosphere, it's anyone that may have overstayed, regardless of their violence or their criminal tendencies or whatever they've been doing. Anyone who is here unlawfully has been subject to pickup. And because of the sweep nature, things have gotten very crowded. And, there have been incidents in New York where people who have been picked up are sleeping on the floor at 26 Federal Plaza, which is obviously not appropriate. So for many years, there have been these agreements under 287G, which allows the state and the feds and the local governments to engage in agreements to house prisoners, to move prisoners in a safe and lawful manner, and to move people toward deportation if that was appropriate, or not if it wasn't. Those agreements are now coming under scrutiny. And they're coming under scrutiny because there is a view in some states, many states, that they are being used to essentially abuse peaceful immigrants, people who aren't doing anything, even people who are here lawfully on green cards or, have applications pending. So there is some unhappiness with this. Also, this administration has made more use of what are called administrative warrants. So there are warrants for deportation and other action that can be signed by a judge in the immigration area, and some that are signed by ICE itself. The ones signed by immigration judges or federal magistrates, there's no issue about these. These are all honored, and these are, even in sanctuary cities and states, they have to follow these. It's the administrative warrants that are causing the problem because the states are concerned there's no probable cause. So let me pose for you one of the concerns the states have. Let's say they've picked up a U.S. citizen child with his parent, and let us say they house them inappropriately in a state facility. That child is eventually going to have a civil rights case against the state. The states are concerned about this because the feds aren't going to come in and pay the bill. The states are going to get stuck with this. So you have a state fiscal issue in that direction. You have a second set of concerns, which is the states need to be reimbursed for the cost of housing these prisoners, which is part of the 287G program. So in New York, for example, there's some restrictions now on making agreements to use local police officers to arrest people, but that's not supposed to interfere with the ability of the counties to get compensated for housing prisoners. So it's a very complicated issue. And what the states are doing other things besides, objecting to these 287G arrangements or refining them or reducing them or limiting them, because it's really limiting that's going on. And the limiting that's going on is they do not want their officers involved in the issue in arrests based on these administrative warrants. I've read Judge Hochul's executive order. I've read some others. It seems clear to me they do not want to be involved because they are concerned about the long-term consequences of picking up citizens who are lawfully here, people on green cards who are entitled to stay, and U.S. citizens, because we know in Minnesota, a lot of U.S. citizens have been arrested, also in Oregon.
I just want to jump in at this juncture and focus for a moment on the fact that what has riled most people up isn't just the rounding up of people. It's what has happened with activists. That's
a whole separate set of issues.
Right.
And I'm happy to talk about that too.
Yeah.
But I just want to say on the 287 front, and I want to point out to our listeners, there are actions being taken by state and local government to document what's happening. The most imaginative right now is from New York AG James, who has assigned observers. She's literally putting people in purple jackets with cameras, no weapons, just cameras, to go and observe and film. Why is she doing this? Because the feds are not cooperating with the state authorities in Minnesota in these murder investigations, and she does not want to be in a position where she cannot investigate a murder or serious assault that takes place in New York. There are portals established by a number of states, including California, where you can upload your videos. New York has one too, a number of states do. There are other legislative activities to try to limit cooperation on these administrative warrants, but these are some of the steps that are being taken by state and local governments. And if you're in a state with one of these ICE situations and you see something and you film it, go check your state websites, check your state AG website, check your local police website. They may ask you to upload your video. And they're doing this because they want to get evidence of what's happening in your state or your community.
Sure.
And make sure that you are able to, keep a record, and that the state governments are able to, have a meaningful dialogue with the federal authorities and the courts if it becomes necessary.
So this is in real time here. Chuck Schumer, Minority Leader in New York, says that Democrats are assembling a tough, strong plan to codify the restrictions they want on federal agents carrying out the immigration crackdown. Republicans
Yes.
balking at that. Some of the conditions say it's an uphill battle before funding for Homeland Security, et cetera, et cetera. The border czar, as they're calling him, Tom Homan, says he's pulling out 700 immigration agents out of Minnesota, leaves about 2,000. Schumer's plan here with the Democrats to come up with some kind of plan. What are your thoughts there?
Well, if we look at the current litigation that's going on both in Minnesota and Oregon, which are the two most active right now, you can see the outlines of the plans the Democrats want. Tear gas controls, body cameras, no rubber bullets, restrictions on the use of weapons, probably more controls on these administrative warrants. That's what I would suggest. They want to put an end to the racial profiling, which is a serious problem. Oregon has seen it. Minnesota has seen it. Even here in New York, we've seen some of it. And they want to restrict these activities to people with targeted warrants. They do not want these general sweeps. They do not want them pulling people out of cars. They want regular order. They want Fourth Amendment observation, Fourth Amendment adherence. They want them to follow the law. I find it fascinating to read the Justice Department manual, which is a public document. Anyone can read it. If you look at this manual and you look at the way some of these activities are supposed to be carried out, these federal agents are not following the manual of the Department of Justice. They are engaging in unnecessary violence against these protesters.
Again, I say this, this is not about politics here. This is, observing and facts. And that manual that you just said, documented. It's a fact. That's documented.
Yeah. And I think it's very important for people to understand where some of these policing controls started. They started in the mid-'60s. And they started in the wake of the urban violence that we saw in the late 60s.
Racially fueled, but certainly supported. There was support of evidence of poor conduct by the police, and so you have 50 years of study of this problem by the FBI, by local police departments, by state police departments, by academics. And there are a series of rules and regulations that have been laid down. And there are best practices now. And de-escalation, non-provocation, very important. Another thing that's extremely important is never to allow law enforcement officers to be isolated so that they become frightened or they become concerned for their own lives. That's why if you see a typical kind of demonstration in New York, you'll see lots of police. They're not doing very much, but they're there basically to keep the demonstrators where the demonstrators are, to keep people who are not involved in the demonstration somewhere else, and to basically serve as a community policing facility just to discourage anyone from doing anything silly. And it works. The demonstrators feel safe because nobody's throwing anything at them and they don't need to have a reaction. The citizens feel safe because the police are there. And so the demonstrators say their piece. I mean, I walked down into 6th Avenue the other day and there was an anti-ICE demonstration. Okay, fine. I looked at where the police were distributed. I looked at where the protesters were, and I noticed where the police were allowing people to cross the street. So I walked a couple blocks south. I followed the path the police laid out for me, and I just went about my business. And the demonstrators were safe, the police were safe, and so were the pedestrians. And there's accountability because it's not just one person. You have many, and they all, in my opinion, in this age of technology and costs coming down for these devices, body cam, body cam, body cam. I don't see how that could be. Even in the good case from a few weeks ago, there's some body cam footage of the officer that fired the shots. I'm not seeing a lot of video from other body cam. I don't know why that would be, but you leave it as it would be. And the other thing, and this is just my personal question. I wasn't there. You weren't there. in both situations, that one and also Minnesota. Whatever happened to tasers? In those two situations, I would think that that might have been useful, but what do I know? I'm just hypothetically throwing it out there.
I'm not sure these officers for Border Patrol or ICE are trained in the use of a taser.
All right.
We've talked about the Pettit situation and the fact that there are a number of violations of good practices involved there. If anyone wants to look at that, all you have to do is go to the New York State, just get the name of the website up here real quick.
Sure.
The New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services has a use of force reporting page, which has a large number of reference materials and some best practices. And they will show you how these things, how demonstrations should be handled, and when is use of force a problem. The New York page is very typical. It's you'd see the same thing at the city of New York. You're going to see the same thing in any major city or state. It's all basically the same, but it's not what's being done by Border Patrol. They're not following these best practices, and this is a problem. I don't think they're trained. I don't think they're properly trained to engage in local policing. I don't think they know how to handle demonstrators, and they haven't had enough sense to let the local police do it. I mean, Oregon went in and tried to handle it for them, and they basically got into an argument with Oregon, and Oregon walked away. And they're not, they should really lead the local police to do their local policing because they know how to handle demonstrators. But it's my unfortunate opinion that I am reaching after watching some of this, that some of the folks in the Border Patrol and ICE do not want demonstrations. They do not want free speech. They are trying to intimidate those who are watching and monitoring.
You just brought up a thought. So we have all these agents coming in, the federal agents coming in to Minnesota, just say, pick any city, whatever it might be. They're not familiar with the logistics, the areas, the people. I got to believe the people of Minnesota, radically different than the people of New York City in terms of the vibe, all of that. Do you think that matters?
I don't think it's true.
How do you mean?
I think people are people. I think there's a certain level of desire for civic peace and certain kinds of engagement between the public and the police, and even certain behavior toward immigrants. I don't actually think the vast majority of Americans are happy with what they're seeing on television, any more than they were happy with fire hoses and dogs turned on civil rights demonstrators back in the 60s and 70s. I don't think it's changed.
Fundamentally, I completely agree with you. Let's be human. Let's be kind. I got that. And there are laws and rules that need to be adhered to. But a little piece of me says that, the police officer in New York City might deal with people around him differently because that's his culture. Now you're bringing in people.
There is a certain amount of.
That's what I'm saying. And
there is a certain amount of cultural difference from city to city, and
it's like if you, and I know we're getting granular here for a moment, but if you were to bring in somebody from Minnesota and dropped them into law enforcement of whatever capacity in New York City proper, they might be shocked. What the heck? Look at the way these people act, the way they talk, or whatever. We both are from New York, so I'm going to say we kind of get it. But it's a different mentality in terms of how you relate to people. I guess that's the word, relate to people.
I will give you an incident, a true incident.
Sure.
It was after 9/11, and they still had those perimeters and everything in the city. And my dentist's office was inside one of these perimeters, but I was a dental emergency, and I had to get inside the perimeter to go to the dentist.
Oof, okay.
So they had New York City police and they had New York State police. So the New York State police was giving me this big argument about, I'm not on the right list. I'm on a list. I'm not on the right list. Should I go in the perimeter? The New York City police walk away from this guy. They just walk away. And I take out my cell phone and I now start to talk to the dentist's office about they won't let me through and I'm in all this pain and what should I do? Should I call an ambulance? How do I handle this? By this time, the New York State officer is looking around, and there's nobody from the city around him. And the sergeant, he finally looks at the NYPD sergeant, who looks at him like this and says, leave her alone, let her go.
Hey, Jimmy, she's from New York. Let her through.
She's just going to the dentist. He's
Right.
right over there.
Right. And,
so, yeah, there is a certain amount
there
of
is
that.
just a little, I'm just looking at it. I'm trying to look at it from all different viewpoints and why things escalate. And I don't recall where the officers that are getting the attention, shall we leave it at that, in those two situations were from, if they were native to that area. So I actually don't recall. I'm going to look that up. Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, well, I think my view is with the officers involved in these situations, they were just not trained. There is certain basic training. I don't care if you're in Des Moines, Iowa, or, a small town in Missouri, or a big city like Los Angeles or Portland. There is police training, and they all get a lot of the same training. I don't care where they are.
Yeah.
And it involves de-escalation, and it involves community policing, and it involves connecting with the community and not provoking a situation that may already be tense.
Carol, you just said a word that just resonated for me. De-escalation. You have a situation. It may be uncomfortable. There could be a threat there. Yes, you need to protect yourself and your colleagues and the public. But at the same time, the goal should be, let's take this down some notches instead of taking it up some notches. And it doesn't look like that took place.
That's training.
Yeah.
It's training for the officers to understand when the situation can be de-escalated. Right. And it's also partly what I mentioned to you at the very beginning, not having the officers isolated, having enough officers around to create a forceful presence that's not aggressive, but is there.
Yeah.
So that the officers don't feel isolated, people who are passing by don't feel isolated, and the demonstrators don't feel threatened. This is all very important. This is all part of de-escalation. And this is critical.
Thank you. Thank you for these thoughts today. Like, I know we got a little bit deeper into this, but I love the way it's almost like TV, where it's a camera angle. Let's look at it from this side over here. What about this side over here? Giving the benefit of the doubt. Again, we weren't there. We just go with the facts that were presented, whether it's body cam, bystander, info, video, whatever it is. But also, you can't argue with the law, especially the that handbook that you referred to. There it is. There it is. What's the best way if somebody wants to connect with you? They have a question. They want to voice their opinion. How do we do that?
Email me. Sigmond, CSIGMOND at Nossaman, NOSSAMAN.com.
Thank you.
I answer all my emails. And
I'm sure next time we get together, there will be something to talk about. There always is. There always is. What's law got to do with it? Carol, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Stay well, Steve. Thank you.
We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Jason Derulo. I love that music connects to people all over the country. But unfortunately, so does something else. Childhood hunger. 15 million kids struggle with hunger right here in America. And yet, every year, billions of pounds of surplus food in the U.S. go to waste instead of going to the children in need. Feeding America is working to change this. The Feeding America nationwide network of food banks rescues this surplus of food to help provide meals to families in virtually every community in the United States, including yours. But they just can't do this alone. Join me in the fight against hunger in America. For more information on what you can do to get involved, visit feedingamerica.org. That's feedingamerica.org. Together we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America. A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.